Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the November Academy session number 1. We're looking at Magnus Carlsen in November, and today we're going to look at a game, Magnus Carlsen versus Alireza Firouzja. And Firouzja is actually playing David Howell today in the Grand Chess Swiss, so I thought this would be a nice game to show you. It's a highly complicated game, and so I mean, I don't feel like I really understand it. It's so complicated, but we can have a good look at it and think about some of the ways that Magnus assesses positions and his real calculation that takes place. So let's start by looking at the first few moves. If you've got any questions, please ask them in the chat. And if you want me to unmute you, that's fine as well, if you want to ask something there. So do we know this opening? I'm hoping you'll say yes. Good. This has become, so this bishop c5 move has become really quite popular. It's actually one of my favorite lines against the Spanish, and yeah, it's been played quite a lot in recent high level chess. So I mean, people, putting the bishop on c5 just means that white's got to worry about attacking chances, but it doesn't come without risks. I mean, I've had some games in this line where I've got mated because black's king safety can often be a problem, and it's quite easy for white to attack. But if you can get away with having the bishop on c5 or b6 when it goes back there, then it can be very powerful. So let's just because I mean, we're not doing a lesson on opening today, so I'm not going to tell you too much about this, although this is one of my favorite openings against the Spanish. Black can't take that pawn there. It's a bad move, but I'm not going to. Well, does anyone know why? I might as well ask the question. Why can't we take that in this position? Let's check everyone's woken up whilst I have some coffee. Because it is attacked twice and only defended once. Just as a warm-up question. So I've been told that if bishop takes, then black can play pawn to d5, and yes, that does win a piece. So let's look at the line though where they play knight takes, which I guess you'd be considering more so than bishop takes. Just letting a few more people into the meeting. Okay, so what happens after knight takes? I mean, even if you don't play this opening, you should get familiar with these ideas. Jaden said take on e5. Yeah, I believe that's a good move. I think there's something slightly better, but I think taking on e5 is good. Knight e5. Maybe nobody here plays the Archangel. Okay, I'll just tell you because I don't want to run out of time, because I want to get to this game. Is so exciting. So rook takes, bishop takes, and now we take on e5, and this is just terrible position for black. If pawn takes, well, take the queens off, and now after knight takes e5, the knight has got so many threats. Despite white being behind on material, there's just absolutely nothing that black can do to defend all the threats. So this is a bad variation, and that's why they don't take the pawn. So they just drop the bishop back to a7 in this line, which happened in this game. Okay, I'm not going to do too much theory on this. Now I'll just make one comment though. I used to not play bishop b7 when I played this, because I was always worried about the f5 square, and now the top players have started putting the bishop on b7, which is quite interesting. They never used to. Obviously, I get a lot of my theory from looking at high level games, but now this has been quite popular, this move bishop b7. So white played bishop e3, And look, we're sacrificing a pawn. And also I'll mention that if the bishop wasn't on b7, after knight takes e4, white has a move bishop to d5, forking the knights, but because the bishop's on b7, that's not possible here. And both players are still in their prep at this stage. And knight d2 was played. Just get to the exciting part. Could have done d4. Yeah, there are some other lines, but this was all Magnus's preparation. And he's played this instantly. I don't know if anyone was watching the game live, but he played this really, really quickly. He got to this position, and I think he sort of assumed this would just be good for white. He probably checked it with the engine before the game, and I think he was happy with this position. And then he said in the interviews afterwards that maybe this is just a draw, maybe it's just an equal position. But just looking at it now, what do you think's good about white's position? Just tell me in the chat. Say it to everyone, but what do you quite like about white's position here? What could you do with some ideas and plans? Yep, Gregory, that's right. Yep, Katie, good. Central knight. Yeah, Frank, that's correct. Yeah, pressure on f7. That's the first thing that jumps out at me. Yeah, it was on Bodhana. Ray, I like white's knight and his bishop. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, if somebody gave me this position and said, which color would you rather be? I'd definitely say white. So black has to make a move now to stop. A lot of you have mentioned f7 is weak. So what do you think black should play now? I think black's only really got one move that keeps him in an equal position. So we're aware that there's some tactics against f7. White would want to play rook at d1 next. So what should black play? Good, Joseph and Bodhana. And Rhea, yeah, excellent. Bishop d5. It just stops any pressure on f7. So that was what was played, challenging the diagonal. And now Magnus went into deep thought for the first time in this game. So bishop went back to c2. Knight c6, knight takes c6, bishop takes c6, and rook a d1. So, I mean, I get a lot of juniors saying, "Oh, I lost a game, but I was drawing, and it should have been a draw." I mean, this position is equal, but why Magnus is so good is that he can, squeeze results out of anything. Just one small advantage, and the perseverance to keep going. He just keeps coming up with ideas, keeps trying to challenge his opponent. And this, leads to a very exciting end game. Okay, so rook f8. And Magnus kind of realized now that he didn't really have any easy plans, so he just had to keep making moves, and he decided to swap the rooks off and then move his rook to d1. And I mean, if I looked at this position, I would think that it's probably a draw. And I don't know, what do you guys think about this position? I mean, I have that pawn on a6 has been highlighted, but it is looking very equal, this position. Do you guys ever approach a position in a game and think, right, it's equal, I'll just offer a draw? Does anyone ever do that? Yeah, good comment, Katie. Yeah, I think you should never offer draws. I mean, I never offer draws, and I would rather lose trying to win a game than offer a draw, because otherwise you don't know what could have happened. And even if you're playing a much stronger opponent, you learn more from playing the position out. And it's something David Howell always says. And he said he did that as a junior, and that's why he got so strong. You never know, today he might be able to beat Firouzja. So, Magnus probably knows it's a draw if you were to play best engine moves. But he's confident with his chances, and that's why he's such a strong player. But the weakness here is the a6 pawn. That's the only thing that white can be excited about in this endgame. So let's have a look. Both. And now black's next move. We need to do some prophylactic thinking now. So what do we think black will play next, and what can we do to prevent that? Yeah, excellent, Tori and Joseph and Frank. Yeah, black wants to move the king to c5. So we'll defend that with b4. So yeah, prophylactic thinking is important. And white is putting pawns on the opposite color to his opponent's bishop, because that means that the bishop's not just going to storm in and take them. And Magnus has still got an eye on this pawn and the fact that he's got a light squared bishop. So Firouzja's always got to be conscious of the fact that Magnus will attack that pawn given the chance. And Joseph said king d5, bishop e2. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, if black were to play king d5, bishop e2 would stop the king getting to c4. Yeah, well done. That sounds good. Also, king d5, just looking at it. What about bishop b3? That might be even better. There's quite a lot of ideas here, actually. I was thinking this, but maybe king f3 or bishop f3. I mean, yeah, there's some options here. It is a skewer, but I'm sure that's just a drawn end game. So I'm not sure if we want to swap the bishops off because we're trying to get a win. I don't know. There's lots, yeah, but I mean, I don't know what the best move is, but I like Joseph's idea of stopping the king from getting to this square. Okay, so let's have a look at the game. Bishop d5 was played, which makes sense. And I think Firouzja's probably thinking it was just to draw this position. And at this point in the tournament, Magnus really needed a win in this game. So he was probably feeling a bit nervous, trying to squeeze a win out of this game. So g4 was played, and black's next move, I think is a mistake because it gives white some further chances on the king side. So he went h6. Now let's do some prophylactic thinking again. So what do you think black's next move will be, and what should we play? I think white's only got one move if he's playing for a win here based on h6. Okay, that's good, Tori. I'll just give everyone a chance to look at the position. So let's play h6. What might he be trying to do on the next move? Remember, in these end games as well, the more pawns that get swapped off, the easier it is to draw. I'll give you a couple of minutes just to look at the position. I was just looking at the videos. Is everyone still in their pajamas because there's only 3 videos on? Hi Ed. Are you excited to watch David's match this afternoon? Is it on at 12 o'clock? Oh, cool. I'm looking forward to it as well. Hey Rhea. I always like to see people's videos. I'll see what they're focusing. Okay, so black's next move would be g5 if you got the chance. But honey, you can watch it on Chess 24. I'll post a link at the end of the session. So yeah, g5 is what black wants to do. And I think if black gets g5 in, then the game is probably just a dead draw. So the only way that white can stop that is by playing g5 himself. It does allow the black king some activity, but it creates some imbalances on the king side. So black took and white took. So can somebody write to me in the chat, what do you think is another sort of winning chance for white now if they were given the opportunity? So what would be a good plan on the king side? Yeah, some good answers coming in there. Yeah, if white could, get his pawn to h6, then it would be very, very good. But I've got to be conscious of black's king coming in, because black's king is pretty central. So we've got to be careful what's going on. But I mean, the 2 versus 1 here gives white another opportunity. So we've got to take our time and not rush the plan. It all comes down to lots of calculation, which Magnus is very good at. So after f takes g5, black went c5. He's just trying to eliminate pawns, because the more pawns that get swapped off, usually in king and pawn endgames, king bishop and pawn endgames, leads to a greater chance of being able to draw. So after that move, white just moved the king. Yeah, Joseph, well done. Just improve the king. The king now is looking at both sides of the board. Magnus has got at the back of his mind this pawn, and the fact that if he can get his bishop round to win that pawn, then that's another winning chance for him, because obviously take that pawn, going to be pretty winning. So takes, and now white to play. What should we play now for white? I think there's only really one good move. Wait, sorry, I forgot to play black's move first. And right, what's a good move for white now, please? We've got to watch out for what black's trying to do with his king. And Magnus was playing quite risky chess when he played g5. I think he spent quite a lot of time here trying to work out the lines. So white to play, what should we play? So far I've had from you guys bishop c2, bishop g4 and h4. In fact, we'll do them in different colors. Decide which one you would play. See if you can play like Magnus. I don't think any of those moves are bad moves. Got bishop h5 as well. Excuse me. Okay, so let's go through them. This is a really complicated ending, so I'm not sure that I know everything that's going on here. In fact, I'm sure I don't. But bishop c2 makes a lot of sense, preventing the king from going to f5 and attacking our g pawn. So I don't have a problem with that move. I just don't see how white is going to generate the winning chances. So you need to give me more detail if you want to play that move. Bishop h5. Yeah, looks sensible. After king f5, what are you planning on doing? I see a winning move for white now. Can you guys see it? Yeah, well done, Ria. Bishop g4. So remember, we're not forgetting about the fact we're trying to get to this pawn. And if the king takes, we just go here, and once we win that pawn, it's going to be easy to win for white. So bishop king to f5 may not be the threat straight away, but that is going to be the long-term threat. So h4 was what Magnus played to defend this, but also to support his plan of just pushing his h pawn. Black played g6. I think that's the only move for black. If black doesn't play that, let's just make a different move for black. Let's go king f5. How does white win? I don't want one move, I want a full variation. How does white win? A winning move for white, but not just the move, the variation. As this is all about calculation. Yeah, good, Bodhana. Yeah, good, Katie. There's a better move than that, Frank. After your move bishop c2, I think the king will just go back to e5, and black might have solved some of his problems. Yeah, good, Joseph. Yeah, so king to d4. I mean, it attacks the bishop as well. The bishop's got to move somewhere. Let's put it, where should we put it? Oh, maybe we should move the king back and try and defend. I was going to go king c5 here, but actually I'm just calculating h5 because now the king is overworked. So maybe h5 is the simplest in this position, I think. Yeah, that looks good because the king can't come back because the bishop's on free. So that's why it's good to have plans on both sides of the board, and that's what Magnus has done in this game. So he's got ideas against the a6 pawn. He's got ideas against pushing his h pawn on the king's side. So yeah, if the bishop moved somewhere like, let's say, g2, then just king c5, and black can't stop white from winning a6 and winning the game. So after h4, Firouzja went g6. I think that move is forced. It's the only move that keeps black in the game. And then, oh yeah, this was a strange point in the game because Firouzja spent 15 minutes on that move, and all the commentators were saying, why is he spending so long? It's the only move. But maybe he was calculating a bit deeper. But I think it's good to, if that's a forced move, move it and then calculate deeper in your opponent's time. Maybe I should tell Firouzja that. So bishop g4 was played, and now black to play. Now there's only one move for black now to defend. So black to play. What should black play? And then give you some time. I'm not going to make any comments until you've thought about it. It's only one move to draw for black now. If you've got your move, double check it. I'm going to give you 3 more minutes on this. We've had a lot of wrong answers in. So think about the concept of zugzwang. Does anyone need more time? It's fine to need more time because this is an incredibly hard move to find. And it's the only move that draws the game. Okay, that's fine, Rhea, no problem. I'll just put on the screen the candidate moves that people have given me, just so you can see. We've had that. I'm not going to tell you whether your move's correct yet. We've had this. This. And did I have anything else? I don't think I did. They're the 3 candidate moves that, if you want, I'll make it a bit easier. I'll flip the board around for this bit. There we go. I mean, given that this is the only move that draws the game for you, you might as well take your time making sure it works. So if you've decided your move, be absolutely sure it works. I'm sure everyone's seen that white's threat is bishop c8, so we've got to do something about that. Okay, I'll give you 3 more minutes. I don't think anyone's really, if you've got a move, tell me why that move works. There's quite a few people have got the right answer, but not everyone. I need to know you understand the move rather than you're just guessing a move. So try and write an explanation whilst we're waiting for people that are still thinking, which is fine. It's good to take your time in chess. It's not an easy game. Okay, so let's just have a look. If you said f5, not sure whether you forgot about en passant, but white can just take. In fact, I'll make it from white's perspective now. White can just take en passant, and then after takes, we go bishop to c8, and we've achieved our goal. We'll win this pawn and win the game. I'm just looking at the chat. Okay, so that doesn't work. Hopefully you understand why. Don't forget about en passant. I know it's rare, but it does happen. The majority of people went bishop to b7. So let's just have a discussion about this before I say something. Does that work? Does that defend? Yes, it stops bishop to c8, but that bishop is stuck there and can't move. So it all revolves now around Zugzwang. So I mean, just if I went, let's just see what, say I went bishop h3 now. Black to play, what are you going to play? Do you have a move? You don't want to move your king because then my king gets in. And you don't have a good pawn move. So yeah, you're in Zugzwang. And white's completely winning. So somebody said king d6, but then I think just king d4. I've got a good bishop, you've got a bad bishop. You can't move your bishop. So you just have to move your king. I can always waste a move with my bishop if I need to improve the sort of king and pawn endgame. And this is just completely winning. So let's just go king. Well, I don't think black even has a move. I can't think of a move for black. King c6, then I'll come this way and I'll win this pawn. So that's actually quite easy for white to win after bishop b7. So if you said bishop b7, I think you didn't look in the position in enough detail. The only drawing move is bishop e6. And listen to what I say now, because I'll come back to this in a moment. So if white takes the bishop now, black takes back with the f pawn. White isn't winning on this side with the pawns because black's king is in the center. And well, actually, I'll put it to you guys. What's the result now after pawn takes? What is the result? It's all right to tell me who you think is better or winning, but tell me some moves. Then I know you've worked it out. Or at least just explain why you think that's the result, please. Okay, good. It is winning for black. Black has the opposition, so it's white's move. White can't waste a move. H5 is terrible because black can take it, and G6 doesn't work because just king F6 and it's game over. So that would be a terrible move. Magnus would never even consider playing that move. So in this position, given this pawn structure, it's fine for black to play bishop e6 because white can't take it. But think about this later on when the pawn structure changes on the king side. So the only move for white to keep the tension was h5, and that's what Magnus did play. So what happens after bishop takes g4? You guys can tell me in the chat, please. Yeah, good. So white will win if you take the bishop because black cannot stop the pawn from queening. Let's just pause for a moment before white played h5. So that's the only move to give you winning chances. So if you just move your bishop back somewhere like f3, this is a very easy draw. And Firouzja probably thought that was what was happening, bishop d5, and maybe he thought that they were going to agree a draw. But if you want to improve, and if you want to get chances against all players, you need to think of creative ways to keep the game going, and that's what Magnus is very, very good at. So I'm sure if you put the engine on here, the engine would not tell you h5 because it's not a winning move. It just creates chances in the position, and this is what you need to think about doing. Those of you that came to David Smurden's session, he talked quite a bit about this, not relying on looking at engine moves after the game and thinking I should have done this. Try and be creative in your games, and that's what Magnus is doing here. So pawn takes was played. Now bishop takes. Now to me, when I first saw this, I thought, wow, this is really quite scary because isn't black just going to win the g pawn, and maybe black has chances to be winning? I mean, I'm sure Magnus calculated this very, very deeply. But I mean, it looks a bit risky for white now. It's not, but to me it did when I first saw it. And we've got to be careful about the g pawn. But Magnus knows that he's going to win if he can get this pawn. That's more important than the g pawn. So that's his plan. So king went to f5, and Magnus is not bothered at all. I'm just looking at the chat. King f5, bishop takes f7. From Joseph. I don't understand. Can't I just take it? Oh, and then you want to go king d4 maybe. Is this your idea? Yeah, you're right. It is unnecessary. But actually, I'm not sure what's going on here. What is going on here? King e4, bishop e. Because in this position, that's a draw because it's just repeating. So that is a draw. What if they go back with their king though? So instead of my move bishop e6, what if they go king e6? King here. I don't know what's going on here. I don't want to lose that one as well. I can't stop losing the a pawn, so I guess bishop here. King takes. I don't know what is going on here. Is this a draw? Probably is. Can't see. I mean, if I was black, I'd still be trying to win, but I can't see how I'd win this. Yeah, okay, it probably is a draw. But like you said, Joseph, you said it yourself, it's unnecessary sacrificing the bishop like that. especially when we're trying to win. We're not trying to grovel for a draw. So after king f5, Magnus needs to keep the position going, and he's still eyeing up this a pawn over here. So I think there's one other variation actually that Alex put here in the file for the academy. After king to, after bishop to d5 now, let's try this, see if you can work this out. White to play and win. I think there's more than one move that wins, but I want you to really try and work this out. So what should white play? This is relevant to what we talked about earlier before the pawn structure changed. In fact, while you're thinking about this, I'm just going to grab a glass of water. I'll be back in a second. Let me know in the chat. So what happens after bishop g4? I guess that's what I'm getting at here. Does black have the defense he had before? Or is this winning? Katie, can't I just take the pawn after you play g6 in your line? She had bishop g4, bishop e6, g6, but can't black just take that? Yeah, I wouldn't be taking the bishop, I'll be taking the pawn. And does black have the defense he had before with bishop e6? Does that still work for black? Yeah, excellent. Shrupa and Gregory. So now the pawn structure's changed, and after bishop e6, we can take it. Remember before, after pawn takes, it was losing because white had an extra pawn and black had an extra pawn. But the position is different now. After pawn takes f6, white's winning because this is a typical example of white's pawn being further away to a6. So here, I mean, pretty much. Okay, I was going to say that there's probably lots of winning moves, but maybe not. Maybe we just need to play king d3. And after king f5, king d4, and now takes. We've got king e5, and black's king's further away, and this is going to be winning. I think king somewhere. And we just get over and take these pawns. Yeah, well done, Tori. That's good. Lots of people got that idea. So it's very interesting how, you know, the position of the pawns has changed. That's probably one of the reasons why Magnus played h5, because he saw this bishop e6 defense no longer works. Why do you think it's a draw, Joseph? I think it's just winning if white plays precisely. I mean, a couple of people said g6 now, but I don't think that actually works because the king is far away, so you just lose a pawn when white goes a6. Oh, okay, let's have a look at that again. So takes, what line did I go? King there. Oh yeah, well, black can play e5 here as well. But let's just go back to that line where we're looking at then. So king will get, yeah, even if black's king gets back, black will lose 2 pawns, so it's going to be a winning king and pawn end game in that variation. Right, let's go back to where we were. Hang on a second, I've gone back too far. I've lost where I am. Sometimes if you click the wrong thing on Lichess, it changes the order of the lines, and that's what I've done. Okay, so we had this position, king f5, and now if bishop d5, we've just looked at how that's not best move. So king f5, now bishop f3 was played. So this position I think is quite amazing. So the bishop goes back to c8, and it's the only move. But now, I don't know, look at this position. I mean, I thought this would be not winning for white, and I don't think it is winning for white. I think the engine evaluation is equal, but it does just look like we're going to lose a pawn and give our opponent a passed pawn. So it's a pretty scary position to get into. I mean, who would be confident playing this position as white? If you would be, then you're probably close to being very, very good at chess. But I mean, you'd have to have worked out all the lines. You know, Magnus Carlsen was confident, but I don't think the commentators were confident about this position at this point either. And Magnus had this amazing idea planned. Okay, so king d4, king takes g5, and now white to play. What should white play in this position? And this was an amazing concept that Magnus had. So white to play, what would you play here? And I don't think it is winning, but it just threw Firouzja off and he made a mistake and white won. It's a move that is pretty amazing because white's playing for Zugzwang in this position, knowing that the bishop can't move. He's just trying to stop black's play. Quite a few people have put king to c5, but even though, yeah, you've got a plan of king to b6, bishop to b7, and to win by queening your a pawn, that's far too slow because black's got a passed pawn as well now. So we need to come up with something a bit cleverer than that. We know black can't move the bishop because we've got bishop b7. Okay, excellent. Bodhana, king e5. Now the position is still equal, but Firouzja made a mistake. And this is what happens if you put your opponent under pressure for so long. Very often they will make a mistake. So king e5, and yep, black's a pawn up, but it's still a sharp position, and black doesn't have that many easy moves here. So he moved f5, which is still absolutely fine. King went to d6. f4. Now, white to play. What should white play here? Again, it's still not winning, but it really did cause some problems for black. So white to play, what would you play in this position? And if you find this hard, don't worry, because this is a very complicated game. Yeah, well done, Ed. That's right. I think Bodhana wrote that as well. Yeah, so king c7 isn't the right move. I'll explain why in a moment. King e5 is the correct move. So if you go king f7, I think this position is probably still equal, but obviously Magnus wants to win. So I think bishop g4, and let's go here, for example. There's no winning chances in this position, so it's just going to be a draw, and it's fine if you're playing for a draw, but Magnus is still trying to win. Again, I think king e5 with very best play is still a draw, but this is the point where black is sort of in zugzwang. He can't move this bishop because bishop to b7 is happening. He can't move his king without losing his pawn, so he is in zugzwang. And that's what caused some confusion for Firouzja, and he went wrong. So he moved his king back there, collapsing under the pressure. And what should he play here? Now, there's an amazing line which I was just looking at before this session with Alex, and the best move for black now is bishop to h3, which looks really quite silly because you're inviting bishop to b7. The point is, now black can go bishop to f1, which defends this pawn, and after bishop takes a6, then we can just play f3, and we're not losing the second pawn, and it should be fairly easy to draw this. Let's say white goes bishop back there to try and push his pawn, then black's got pawn to f2. A6, move our bishop somewhere so we can get a queen. Yeah, bishop h3, good idea, Joseph. And then a7, and I'm not going to go any further, but both sides will have queens. It's probably just an easy draw unless you blunder. So that's what he should have done, but he didn't. He just moved his king back this way, and now he's collapsed because now white goes into a winning position. And I think it's still hard. And this is what, just showing you, top level chess games are so complicated, and most of the time they are just a draw, but one small slip can cause the result to be decisive. So let's see what happened. Bishop d5, preventing king e6. And now as black, it's very hard to defend. Well, I think it's impossible to defend now. I think white is clearly winning. So bishop to d7. And white to play. What should we play for white? That move we've been trying to play for so long. Finally got it. Yeah, well done, guys. Bishop b7. King e6. Okay, let's play sensible chess. Let's not rush. What should we play for white now? I've given you a warning there. Don't rush. Sensible chess. Yeah, well done, Katie and Bodhana. We've worked so hard to get this winning position. We don't want to throw it away at the end. And I believe if you take this pawn now, after bishop c6, it may still be a draw. And we don't want that. We want an easy win because we worked so hard to get here. Yeah, well done, Emma, as well. King and Tori, king to e4. Getting the opposition. And now we can take And there's no need to rush when you're winning a game. Just take your time. Because it's very easy for things to go wrong. I'm sure you've all had positions where you've been winning and then suddenly things just go wrong. So now after bishop e4, black finally resigned because he couldn't stop this pawn from queening, just running up the board. Now, I think this game is an incredible game, and I mean, I spent lots of time looking at it, and I still don't understand all the lines. It's very, very complicated. But it just shows you that, you know, in every position, even if it doesn't look like there's any winning chances, there are winning chances. You've just got to create them and believe in yourself, and, you know, spend time calculating lines. And Firouzja had defended so well, and then at this point, he made a mistake and he moved his king out of the way, and it was game over. So Magnus kind of tired him out, and then he went wrong. So I hope you enjoyed that game, and it is in the Academy material for this month. I think it's game number 10. I just decided to show that one because David's playing Firouzja today, and I hope we'll be supporting David because David's been doing some Academy sessions, and he's, you know, one of England's best players. So yeah, thanks for joining this morning, and we'll see you guys next week. I think we've got the next Academy session on Tuesday.